Perek Beis Mishna Aleph. So here in the second Perek, we're finally going to start learning about vessels, about Keilim. And as you see, there are many different types of vessels, meaning different materials that vessels are made out of, and the halacha changes depending on what the vessels are made out of. So the Mishnah starts, clay eights, wooden vessels, clay ore and leather vessels. Here you have a little leather sack. Clay etzem and bone vessels like bone china. Here's a cup of bone china. Clay zechuchas and glass vessels. Vessels made out of these four materials share the same halachas. Namely, the Mishnah goes on and says, Pishutehen tahirin. If they're flat, pashit, if they're flat, tahirin, they're automatically tahar, they're not susceptible to tumah. Umekablehen, but if they have a cavity and they accept things, mekablehen, if they accept items, temeim, then they are susceptible to tumah. So again, halacha number one of these types of vessels is that if they're flat, they're tahar. But if they have a base kibble, meaning they can accept items, then they can become tameh. That's halacha number one. Halacha number two, we're going on. The Mishnah goes on and says, Nishbiru, once they break, taharu. Then they're not tameh anymore, they're tahar. Because only vessels are susceptible to becoming tameh. But once it breaks, it's not a vessel anymore, and therefore it's tahar. So let's go back to our list. Halacha number two is if these four vessels break, if they break, then they're automatically tahar. And then halacha number three, the last halacha of these items, is chazar v'asa mehem kelim. If you return and make out of the shards a new vessel, you patch up and you make a new vessel, mikablim tumah, it's only susceptible to tumah, mikan ulahaba, from now onward. And it doesn't return to its old tumah that it had before it broke. So again, halacha number three is if you rebuild it, if you remake it, if you remake the vessel, it's only tameh from now on, and it doesn't retract its old tumah. Now the Mishnah goes on to tell us the halacha of two other types of vessels. Clay cheres, earthenware vessels, clay neser, and clay neser. Now what's neser? Neser is alum, which is some type of chemical compound that comes from the ground, and since that's very vague, so I have a picture of it over here. And if you have a vessel made out of alum, or if you have a vessel made out of clay cheres, of earthenware vessels, like this clay mug, so these two types of vessels have the same halachas. As the Mishnah says, tumason shaveh. Their laws of halachas are equal, are equal. And now the Mishnah is going on to list four halachas that only apply to clay cheres and to clay neser. Now, in fact, the first three halachas that apply to the standard vessels also apply to clay cheres. For example, a clay cheres, if it's flat, it's tahar. If it breaks, it's tahar. If you remake it, it's only tameh from then onwards. Those halachas apply to the clay cheres and clay neser also. And the only reason why the Mishnah didn't add it to the beginning list is because there's one slight difference. With regards to halacha number one, that if it's flat, a clay cheres that's flat is tahar. But if it has a receptacle, it's susceptible to tumah. But it doesn't even need a receptacle, because by clay cheres, the Torah says that tumah, if tumah goes inside of it, el toichai, then it becomes tameh. And therefore, even if it's a cylinder, and there's no receptacle, but there is an inside, there is a toich, that's enough for this earthenware vessel to be susceptible to tumah. So long that there's a toich, then a clay cheres is susceptible to tumah. And that's why we didn't add clay cheres to our original list of the standard vessels, because there's a slight difference in halacha number one. Either way, the Mishnah goes on and says, number one, mitamin umitamin ba'avir. Mitamin means they contract tumah. Umitamin, and they transmit tumah ba'avir, in their airspace. So again, halacha number one is that they can become tameh and contract tumah via their airspace. Meaning, if you have this clay cheres over here, and tumah dips into the airspace, even though it doesn't touch the vessel becomes tameh. As we said, the Torah says, if tumah dips el toichai inside of it, even if it doesn't touch it, the vessel becomes tameh. And then if subsequently food dips into the airspace of the vessel, let's say you have a grape over here that dips into the airspace, so this grape can become tameh via the airspace, even though it never touched the vessel. So again, the vessel can contract tumah, it can contract and transmit via the avir, via the airspace. That's halacha number one. And never be confused between mitamin with a chirik and mitamin with a shva. And the trick is that mitamin with a chirik is like the vessel talking. It's saying mitamin, like me, like I'm tummy, I'm contracting tumah. But mitamin with a shva, mitamin is like the vessel saying transmitting. It's transmitting tumah to foods. So again, mitamin is the vessel contracting tumah, and mitamin is transmitting tumah. We're going to have these two words over and over again in the Masechta, so it's better to just get it down now. So that's halacha number 1. Halacha number 2 is umitamin me'achorehen. They can contract tumah via their exterior airspace. Me'achorehen, from their exterior airspace. Now, what's exterior airspace? So sometimes you could have a glass, and the glass has a little bit of a neck and then a base. Now that base can have an airspace. And what they used to do in those days is they would flip over a cup and use the hollow base as like a shot glass. And so our Mishna is teaching us is that this exterior airspace, the exterior of the cup has an airspace, and if tumah goes in and touches the inside of that airspace, then the vessel becomes tameh. So again, if tumah touches the inside of the cup, then it can become tameh from its exterior airspace, from the exterior airspace, from the exterior avir, airspace. That's halacha number 2. Now, if you were sharp and astute, you would have realized that the Mishnah split these two halachas into two separate clauses, that it can contract and transmit tumah through the normal airspace, and number 2, it can become tumah via its exterior airspace, meaning the Mishnah says mitamin umitamin ba'avir, and then the second clause, umitamin me'achorein. Now the Mishnah could have chose to wrote that in one clause. It could have said mitamin umitamin ba'avirehen. It could become and contract tumah from its interior airspace, ume'achorein, and from the exterior airspace. Instead, it chose to write it in two separate clauses. Why did it do that? And the reason is because there's a slight difference in halacha between them. With regards to their interior airspace, the vessel simply contracts and transmits via the airspace. But with regards to the exterior airspace, there's a slight subtlety. That when the tumah goes in the exterior airspace, it has to touch the vessel from the inside to make the vessel tameh. Just dipping inside without touching the inside does not make the vessel tameh. So again, with regards to the exterior airspace, the tumah has to touch the inside, and it's not sufficient for the tumah just to dip into the airspace. So that's halacha number 2. We're going on to halacha number 3 now. Ve'enam mitamin migabehen. They're not susceptible to tumah from their outside. Migabehen, from their outside. Meaning, again, halacha number 3 is that an earthenware vessel cannot become tameh from the outside. If tumah touches the outside of the vessel remains tahor. And it's only if the tumah dips in and is inside the airspace, only then does the vessel become tameh. But not from the outside, not from migabehem. So again, let's read it again. Ve'enon mitamin, klei cheres is not mitame, doesn't become tameh migabehem, from their outside. And halacha number 4 is ushvirasan, and when they break, hi taharasan. That's how you make them tahar. You can't dip a earthenware vessel in a mikvah. As we see here, only breaking it makes it tahar. So halacha number 4 is that you have to break them to make them tahar. You can't dip it in a mikvah. Now, interestingly, just one more thing. There are 7 types of vessels that the Torah says can become tameh. We've in this Mishnah spoke about 4 of them, 4 out of the 7. We had wood, leather, bone, and earthenware. Now, glass is not mitame, cannot become tameh midiraisa. It's only midirabanan, because the Chachamim said it's too similar to earthenware. Because earthenware is made from the ground, from clay, and glass, you know how glass is made from melting sand, also from the ground. And therefore, the Rabbanan said it's too similar, and therefore it can become tameh like earthenware. However, even though it's only tameh because it's similar to earthenware, it could still become tameh from the outside. If tumah hits the outside, it will still become tameh. Because glass is clear. And therefore, since when tumah hits the outside, Chazal said it's as if it's hitting the inside. Because since it's clear, it looks like it could be hitting the inside. And therefore, what I'm basically saying is that even though glass is only tameh because it's similar to earthenware, but it doesn't share the special halachos of earthenware. It just has the halachos of what we'll call the standard vessels. So that's the interesting subtlety here. Now it's your turn to read the Mishnah.